Hi, this is Unimagination with the Healing Garden. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a different approach, really, really different approach. This is how I do things. And this is about as authentic as I can get as far as getting real with you. So I do best when I sit down and I cover things in a meeting setting because that's my comfort zone. And I have a lot of projects. I do this quite often where I have my news and announcements. I like to do them once a week. And I did not do it on Sunday because I was in the middle of having a shift from the 8th to the 9th perspective. And now that things have settled down and I'm examining the big picture, now I'm doing inventory, I'm touching base with my team, and I'm going, okay, what are all the projects I'm working on? And this is basically it, is I have a lot of projects. Now, while I'm doing all of these projects, I also am trying to figure out what I want. and that's it. And authenticity is what you want. This is authentic lessons. This is authenticity 101. And that's really it. That is what triadic healing is. Whew, been trying to say that for a few years. Triadic healing is just authenticity 101, how to live authentically. But there's a lot of authentic coaches out there. And here's the thing. A lot of people think that authenticity is part of the problem, or it's part of the solution, or it's part. It is. It is. When you study philosophy, you sit down and you ask the question, who are we? That's all you do. That's all you talk about. The very first class. Who are you? Who are we? Who are you? Strip away all else. Just that question. Who are you? Strip away the world. One of my favorite books is Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Within the first few pages, Earth is destroyed. And the only human survivor is Arthur Dent and his bathrobe. He woke up that morning with his home being bulldozed to make way for a bypass. It did not go as planned. The Vogon construction fleet showed up, which are the aliens, and they're there to say, guess what? Earth is being eliminated because it needs to be made way for the hyperspace bypass. Irony. And Earth is destroyed. You don't start a book expecting to see Earth destroyed in the first few pages. Thank you, Douglas Adams. And Arthur Dent, whose friend, Ford Prefect, that's like calling him Ford Chrysler. That's his name. Clearly, it's a made-up name. And the reason why it's made up is because Ford is an alien. He arrived on planet Earth with the intent to do some research to update the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy's entry on Earth. And after 7 years, he got stranded. He decided to change the entry from harmless to mostly harmless. 7 years, and that's all he could come up with Earth, mostly harmless. So Arthur finds himself on this alien ship by 10 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. And he's just sitting there going, Earth is destroyed, huh? And he does the philosophical thing. He goes inward. He thinks of his goldfish. No, wait. Let me think about this. He thinks of his goldfish dead, and he feels nothing. He thinks that his cat is dead, and he feels nothing. He thinks that his mother is dead, and he feels nothing. Before you judge him, the reason why he feels nothing is because he knows they're mortal. And then he thinks, McDonald's doesn't exist anymore. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony doesn't exist anymore. The dollar bill doesn't exist anymore. Needless to say, Arthur has a massive identity crisis. That really got my 15-year-old brain spinning when I first read it. I thought about God and religion. And I thought, if someone comes along and destroys Earth, our religions would cease to exist. Our religions only exist because we are here thinking them up. And if we die, so do they. A religion is only as strong as its followers. That's not a very good leader. Yeah, this is deep shit. Welcome to philosophy. So who are you? Who are you? Then, the next week of philosophy unfolds, and you dive deep into the why are we asking these questions? Day 2, you ask the question, why are we here? And that's all you do on day 2 is you think, why are we here? There's a couple more questions. Where did we come from? And that's all you talk about on day 3. Where did we come from? The reason why we're asking these questions is because we don't know. And we are pursuing their truth. That is what philosophy is. It is the pursuit of the answer to life, the universe, and everything. It is the pursuit of the big picture. We are all standing at one perspective on Earth, and we are exhausting our literature, exhausting our philosophy, exhausting our medicine, our science, our history, our politics, because we are all pursuing the answer. Who are we? Where did we come from? Why are we here? We've been asking these questions for so long that we have forgotten that we were asking them. A few thousand years ago, we stopped asking those questions and we decided that we know the answer. It happened around 400 CE, when a little, not so little group stepped forward and said, I've got the answer to life, the universe, and everything. The answer is God, God's followers, and from God, to serve God. Those are the answers. And everyone said, yay, we're done with exploring. And they accepted. And they created societies around this concept. And they stopped asking the questions. They even went so far as to ban philosophy from ever being discussed because they had the answers. True story. And then they changed the books. They changed the stories. They changed what they tell people. So people just went, okay, we are here because God put us here. And we came from God. And we are here to worship God. Okay. And they banned education. In some cultures, they banned going to university. They banned philosophy. They banned curiosity. They banned questions. Because if you start asking questions, you start asking again, are they right? The thing is, those answers we were given back in the 5th century are not the right ones. They are not the right ones at all. That's great for Christians. Good for them. I'm glad they have their answers. But there's a lot of people out there who are not happy with that answer. The problem is we come from a society where philosophy doesn't exist anymore. So the majority of us just went, that doesn't feel right. And they walked away from it. And then they became wandering, lost perspectives. And that's it. Wandering, lost perspectives. On occasion, one of them managed to find their way back to philosophy. On occasion. When you step back into philosophy after being a wandering, lost perspective, it's like walking home going, oh my God, these are the questions. Yes. Who are we? Where are we going? Why are we here? Wow. These are the questions I need the answers to. This is what I'm in pursuit of. Who am I? I want to tell you about how Dr. Graves in the 1970s was able to see the 8 stages of growth and how he wrote them all down for other people to understand. I want to tell you how his work was shelved by a bunch of second and fourth perspective thinkers who claimed they had the answer. I want to show you all the examples I found, all of them, where every time somebody stepped forward and said, look at that, the Christians are wrong, how they disappeared, or their work was forgotten, or they were laughed at and called crazy. There are thousands of years proving this. We don't have the answer. Now, I have something, and I'm not claiming it's the right answer, but I'm saying it's a lot closer to the truth than what we originally thought. But it is so abstract that most people cannot understand it. And it all keeps going back to the 8 stages, 9 stages of psychological growth. There is this mentality that there is only one right answer, that there is only one truth, that there is only one perspective, and we all are required to fit into it. So this one perspective manufactured this mandatory one-size-fits-all perspective and then forced us all into it. Now, the second perspectives loved it because they were allowed to keep their religions, so long as they were in the right culture. Third perspectives hated it, and they fought it, and they were significantly abused until they conformed or went insane. Fourth perspectives loved it. It was for them. It was theirs. First perspectives love the structure. It's stable, and it allows the first perspectives to have the caregiver that they idolize. So it's a win-win for the first perspectives. It is a win-win for the second perspectives. The third perspectives are beaten, abused, psychologically ripped apart to conform, forced to obey at a time when they need to be alone and on walkabout. Fourth perspectives are in their glory because they are the lords of this world, and they don't want it to change because it's perfect for them. But it's not perfect for anybody else except the first, seconds, and fourths. So you have third perspectives who are being abused. You have fifth perspectives who are being abused. You have sixth perspectives who are being abused. The third, fifth, and sixth perspectives are called black sheep. The seventh, eighth, and ninth perspective have escaped. They have built their own utopia, and they welcome you in open arms so long as you can live authentically. And whatever laws you want to self-govern are fine as long as you don't force your perspective on anyone else. That's really the only rule. Keep your perspective off of other people. That's the only rule. Keep your perspective off of other people. To do that, you will need boundaries. Boundaries do two things. It keeps you from projecting your perspective onto other people, and it prevents others from projecting their boundary onto you. That's it. It's a really simple lifestyle at the seventh, eighth, and ninth perspective. Real simple. But the third, the fifth, and the sixth were horribly abused. Horribly. This abuse is called perspective abuse. And it basically said one thing to them. Your perspective is not allowed, period. So some people were physically abused. Some people were verbally abused. Some people were neglected. Some people were sexually abused. Some people were enslaved. Some people were tortured. Some people were held hostage. Some people were just thrown away because they couldn't conform to the one rule. Your perspective is not allowed. Now, firsts, seconds, and fourths loved this because their perspective was compatible with the fourth perspective. That's it. It was compatible. So first, second, and fourths are living their ideal life. Now, they have for the last few hundred years, about 1,500 years now. But the third, the fifth, and the sixth, they are suffering. Now, here's the thing about the stages. With the stages of growth, everyone goes through them. You can only go so far. Every stage has a lesson to learn, and you don't get to go on to the next one until you learn. But you don't learn until you want to grow. You have to want the growth in order to learn the lesson. If you are happy with where you are, you don't learn the lesson and you don't grow and you stay where you are. So some people grow until they get to the third perspective and then they're done. Some people grow until they get to the fifth perspective and then they're done. I have yet to meet anyone at the sixth perspective and higher who says, I'm good where I am. I don't need to grow anymore. Sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth love growth. That is what they honor. That is what they celebrate, is growth. Perspectives 1, 2, 3, and 4 value the comfort zone more than the growth. Fifths are divided. Some fifths prefer comfort zones. Some fifths prefer growth. The ones who prefer growth go on to be sixes. They stay where they are, or they go back to fours because they prefer the comfort zone. Neither is right and wrong. The only wrong is forcing your perspective onto other people. That is the only wrong. That is literally the only wrong. You're not allowed to put your perspective on other people. Because when you understand the psychological damage that occurs to an individual, to an authenticity, to an identity, to a love system, when you deny them their perspective, you will find out just exactly how horrifically abusive perspective abuse actually is. Perspective abuse has a lot of symptoms to it. Every mental illness stems from perspective abuse. A mental illness is actually a behavioral defense that a person develops because of perspective abuse. Every mental illness is just all the variations of how a person tries to adapt to someone else's perspective when they are forced to conform. Now, to thirds, fifths, and sixths, they walk away with a lot of mental illness. With firsts, seconds, and fourths, they walk away with almost none at all. The twos and the fours and the ones are split into two categories. They're there free of will, or they were forced to be there. If they are there free of will, they have almost no mental illness. If they are forced, they have a lot of mental illness that their perspective is covering up. So even ones, twos, and fours still might have a lot of mental illness because they are being forced to live in a 1, 2, or 4 perspective so severely that they can't function any other way. My mother is actually a 5th perspective, but she's been so horribly abused by 2nd perspective that she can't get out of 2nd perspective. My mother is forever in 2nd perspective. I'm working on it. But she's got this conflict between 5th perspective and 2 perspective. And she is just completely consumed by 2nd perspective, while her 5th perspective drives her forward for growth. But her 2nd perspective is going, you can't be there. It's not safe. So on the surface, she comes off as a 2nd perspective, a happy 2nd perspective. Inside, she is fighting one of the most hardest battles to fight. I was a 9th, an 8th, and a 7th perspective, crammed and forced into a 3rd perspective. It was insanity. And that's it. Insanity is living inside another perspective by force. That is insanity. Insanity is living in another perspective by force. All of this boils down to authenticity, because when you're authentic, you reflect your own perspective. You live by your own perspective. A perspective is made up of your identity, your ethics, your beliefs. So when you are forced into another person's perspective, you are throwing away your identity. You are shunning what you love. You are living without what you love. You are forced not only to live by the ethics of another person, but you are also forced to violate your own ethics. I was forced to eat meat. I'm being told. I get a lot of people who reach out to me and they confirm I'm a vegetarian who was forced to eat meat. Let me put this in perspective for you. Let me show you what that feels like to us. For us, that's cannibalism. To put flesh in your mouth is no different than putting your own body in your mouth. So in our minds, it's forced cannibalism. That is how I remember it. That is exactly what it feels like to us. It's cannibalism. For 40 years, I was forced to endure that. And yeah, that really fucks up your psyche a lot. I would have nightmares focused on cannibalism. Your ethics are violated. And in most cases, the first, seconds, thirds, and fourths mock and laugh at you. Thirds project or internalize. They project or internalize a lot. If they project, they're going to mock and laugh at you for the abuse you suffer, because you are reminding them of their abuse that they suffer. And if they don't laugh at it, they've got to feel the pain of it, and they can't. So they project. You need a boundary so their projection doesn't hit you. A boundary is a shield. It's a two-way shield. A boundary is a shield. It shields you from abuse that comes toward you, and it keeps your projections inside so it doesn't go onto other people. It's a shield. That's a boundary. It's so you can take your comfort zone with you on the road. So this is what I call triadic healing. It is the very same program that I put myself through to get me from a 7th, 8th, 9th perspective ethics, living in a 2nd and 3rd and 4th society, to aligned with my true authentic self. 999 is where I am now. And it's free. I am the face of authenticity. I show up to meetings as I am. I'm the person who sits there in a professional business meeting and says, does anyone mind if I smoke a joint? I will bring a couple bottles of wines and say, let's have some wine. Just because it's a professional business meeting doesn't mean we can't be authentic. In fact, that is the point. So I'm going to go out of my way and say this. If you want to learn how to live deeply, truly authentic, if you want the theory behind it, come to the garden. This is all I do. This is 100% all of my work. It is the authentic age. And I give classes on how to live in the authentic age. My classes focus all around triadic healing. I have classes like how to socialize while being authentic, how to have a relationship while being authentic, how to build a business while being authentic, how to be a parent while being authentic. I teach you how to shed your manufactured lifestyle. I teach you how to, this is my favorite, live unconditionally, love unconditionally, belong unconditionally. But to do that, you have to drop all the conditions, because conditions are expectations of a different perspective being forced on you. You don't belong if you don't adhere to the perspective, the one I say. You aren't going to be loved if you're not going to be my perspective. You're not going to be wanted if you don't obey my perspective. That's what obedience is. Obedience is living in another person's perspective. Slavery is living in another person's perspective. Conformity is living in another person's perspective. Expectations is living in another person's perspective. I am for the LGBTQIA community. I am for the non-conformist. I am for the millennial. I am for the Gen Z and the Alpha generation. I am for the Gen X's who understand and lean towards the millennial mindset. Those are my people. I am for kinksters. I am for nudists. I am for exhibitionists. I am for people who are seeking to create a new world where authenticity is the rule, and we stop producing manufactured, one-size-fits-all lifestyles for everybody. In my world, instead, we use boundaries, and we allow people to feel humility and self-value. I teach classes like Curing the Narcissist Pandemic. I pull from all of my studies and have accumulated triadic healing from psychology, perspective psychology, in which I am the founder, philosophy, sociology, physics, manifestation, the holistic healing arts. And all of my work is 100% holistic because that's my ethics. I do public speaking. I do live events in New York City designed just to celebrate the shadow self and the non-conformist. I have Operation Imagination, which focuses on world peace and my humanitarian and philanthropic works, and World Peace Manifestation Day. I have very beautiful healing getaway resorts designed for people to literally step into my utopia and live as a 7th, 8th, and 9th perspective, where the only rule is you keep your perspective off of everybody else. That's it. And that you use your boundaries. I teach classes on boundaries. I teach classes on communication. I teach meditation. And I am a philosopher and a podcaster. Podcasting is my passion. That's like right up there at the top. These are all the things I do. Take a look at the link below, Linktree, and you will see a massive menu of everything I offer. If any part of this video resonated with you, click on the link below. Let me know which part of the video resonated with you and which video you watched, and I will be in touch with you shortly. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.